can't stress enough how important a knife is and keeping the knife in the perfect condition, and that it's sharp, clean and safe, and ideally on your person, never left on the floor. It's too easy to walk away and lose it or trip over it, and if it's as sharp as the knife should be, you'll cut open your boot, making it a medical issue as well. But this is how we sharpen our stones. I'm using Japanese water stones today. This is a 1/8 grit and this is a 1/6 grit. The higher the number, the more dense it is and the smoother the stone. This is a little stone called an Aguru Stone, which I'll use on the finest stone to produce a slurry, which will not necessarily sharpen the knife, but it will polish the blade, giving it a more edge what will retain longer. I also have, for the machetes, a oil stone. Because these knives don't need to be as sharp because they're doing a lot more blunt work, you don't want them too sharp because they'll dull too quickly and not be operational for as long. The first thing you do is soak your water stones until they're completely saturated. And you can always tell when that is when they're under the water, the bubbles stop coming up through. There's no more air left in them. Starting with a coarser stone first, getting a level base as you can, whether it be a rock, your rucksack, a piece of wood in this case, or a nice piece of flat ground. If you're in a base camp and you've got a box, bring it up so it's more of a natural level for the arms. But you've got to work with what you've got sometimes, and here we are. Checking the blade first for any grease. We're by pine, and if you're by pine you've probably got resin on there, and any chips and nicks or any areas you need for special attention now. This one's pretty clean as it happens. And once you've checked that and cleaned your blade, you start by putting, this is a bevel blade, you can put the bevel against the stone to the angle, and at light pressure but even pressure, pushing away and working it across the stone. We do this, depending on how blunt the knife is, 6 or 7 times. Then we repeat, pulling towards you. Clean the blade off, leaving the slurry on the board, on the stone. This will make it more abrasive and work better and faster for you. The blade looks pretty good. You've kept the even pressure because you can see a nice glisten on it. If there was any spots of white, there's a little spot there for instance, and there, you need to deal with that by resharpening. But once you've done this, 6 to 7, 8 ways each times, you do it again, but straight after each other, in a sort of continuous. This helps keep the blade central and not going off sharpened to one side where it could taper off when you're using it as a knife. That's good. I wouldn't clean the stone if I was sharpening another knife because the slurry is already made for me. Clean the stone, reappraise the blade again. This is looking pretty good. And now we're going to go on to the smoother stone. And it's exactly the same. 6 to 7 ways one way, then the other, then alternative. You will see on the finer stone, carbon left behind as it polishes and takes away the burr what's been produced by the first stone. This will give you a much more refined and strong edge. Clean the edge. Looking for the dull spots. And when you try a knife, whether it's sharp, you go across the blade, never up and down, because that's where the serration motion goes and it'll cut through your thumb. And you feel the whole blade, not just one spot, to make sure there's no dull patches where it may have been heavily worked if you were doing some carving, let's say. The next procedure is the Aguru Stone, which is a little one. We'll make up into a slurry on the board. This does two things. The slurry polishes the knife, keeping it rust free. It keeps your stone smooth, so when you sharpen, you're not sharpening into a bow, which will blunten it on the way up. And it also cleans the stones for you naturally. And I'll only give this a few strokes. Of course, in a survival situation, you need some kind of shiny material to attract the helicopter. You could do this to your knife as a heliograph or something, just to get to stand out. The next stage on is strobing the knife. This is actually called a birch poly, grows on dead birch, known as the strobe fungus. Got numerous uses, we'll hopefully see some later, but the one you can use for is to remove the burrs by gently backward motion across the blade. And this is called stropping. You may not necessarily have one of these. The next choice is your leather belt, or in this case I've actually got the strop ready, and you do it about 30 to 100 times depending on how long you want to do it for, by pushing the knife away but not the cutting edge, the back of the blade for example. Very light pressure, and this will relieve any of the micro burrs that may be present. This is what they used to see in the old barbers, how to keep the cutthroat razors sharp. And when you've had enough, you can check the blade, see if there's any actual burrs or anything like that. Check it again, and of course the best way of trying a knife is to see if it actually does the job you want it to do. And that's pretty good. Of course, you could always try on your arm and see if it removed the hairs. Spot on.